Let me be brutally honest. Young guys are terrible in bed. You finish in 3 minutes. You jackhammer like you're trying to break something. You have no idea where anything is or what you're doing. I've faked more orgasms with 25-year-olds than I can count. I'm a woman who slept with both, and I'm telling you exactly why older men make us scream, while young guys make us yawn. Today, I'm exposing why women go crazy for older men in bed, and they can't resist this. And the secret, the holistic mastery. That's what makes us shake, moan uncontrollably, and beg for more in ways young men will never understand. Before I destroy every assumption you have, understand why young guys fail so spectacularly while older men succeed. You think your hard body and quick recovery time make you good in bed. You believe enthusiasm compensates for incompetence. You assume we care about your stamina when you can't even make us finish once. We don't care about your abs when you don't know what you're doing. Your energy means nothing when you're doing everything wrong. We fake it with you because teaching you seems exhausting. Older men already know. They learned on women before us. You're selfish. You're rushed. You're clueless. You think what you see works in reality. Older men make us lose our minds because they've spent decades learning exactly what young guys are too arrogant to ask about. These aren't small differences. They're the difference between us faking it and us actually screaming your name. The slow burn torture. This is why we leave young guys for older men. They understand that making us wait makes us desperate, not bored. Young guys would rush through foreplay like it was an inconvenience they had to get through. They'd touch me for maybe 2 minutes before trying to move to the main event, like they were checking off a box on a to-do list. Okay, foreplay done. Let's get to the real stuff. I dated one older man who completely changed my understanding of what was possible. He spent 45 minutes just on foreplay. 45 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. He touched me everywhere except where I desperately wanted him to touch me. My neck, my back, my hips, my thighs, everywhere but there. I was literally begging him. Actually begging out loud like some desperate woman I didn't recognize. Please, please touch me. And he'd just smile and keep doing what he was doing. The anticipation built to levels I'd never experienced with any young guy who rushed. When he finally did touch me intimately, I was already so aroused, I almost came immediately, just from that first touch. The slow torture made me climax harder than I ever had, with rushed young guys who thought foreplay was a waste of time. I grabbed his hair and screamed so loud, my neighbors actually complained the next day. They literally knocked on my door. I was mortified, but also not really. I was shocked that something so simple, just taking time, created such devastatingly intense results. Female arousal isn't instant like yours. We need time for blood flow to increase and natural lubrication to build. When you rush, you're trying to start a car without letting the engine warm up. It doesn't work. It's uncomfortable or even painful. But anticipation that intensifies everything exponentially. The longer we wait, the more intense everything feels when you finally give it to us. Young guys rush because they're impatient and focused entirely on their own needs. They want to get to the part that feels good for them. Older men understand that her full arousal makes everything better for both people. They spend 30 to 60 minutes on foreplay, minimum, not as a chore, but as something valuable in itself. They touch everywhere except intimate areas first, deliberately building tension like they're conducting a symphony. They make her explicitly ask or beg before escalating because they want her desperate. They understand that her desperation is the actual goal and you can see it working. She's soaking wet before you've even touched her intimately. She's physically trying to move your hand where she wants it. She's begging you to stop teasing and touch her. Her breathing is desperate and ragged. When you finally touch her intimately, she gasps or moans loudly immediately. She climaxes within minutes once you stop the torture because she's been ready for so long. That's the difference between a young guy who rushes and an older man who understands patience. But slow burn just builds the need. What really separates older men is that they actually know what they're doing. The precision strike. Young guys couldn't find my most sensitive spots or they'd touch them completely wrong. They'd rub too hard in the wrong place, like they were trying to start a fire with friction. They'd use the same pressure and rhythm, regardless of whether I was responding or not. They seemed to think all women were identical, and what worked on one would magically work on all of us. Like, we all came with the same instruction manual. An older man I dated knew exactly where to touch and exactly how. Not because he was guessing or hoping, because he knew. He found spots I didn't even know I had. Places that made me gasp and grab the sheets. His precision made me respond in ways I never had before. He'd adjust pressure and rhythm based on my actual responses, not some generic technique he'd read in a magazine article. He knew the difference between what works at the beginning versus what works when I'm close to finishing. His anatomical knowledge was absolutely devastating. And here's the thing, I didn't have to guide him or correct him. With young guys, I'd have to move their hand, or say a little to the left, or softer, or harder, like I was directing traffic. With him, I could just experience it. He just knew. That's what years of actually paying attention to different women teaches you. Female anatomy is complex. Random touching doesn't work. It's frustrating and sometimes painful. You need actual knowledge, not guessing. He knew exactly where sensitive spots were without fumbling around searching like he'd lost his keys in the dark. He understood different areas need completely different types of stimulation. What works on her neck doesn't work between her legs. What works at the beginning doesn't work when she's close. He adjusted based on my individual response, not generic technique, and my body responded dramatically and immediately to correct stimulation. I didn't have to guide or correct him constantly. I reached climax more easily and more intensely. I experienced pleasure in specific targeted ways young men never created because they were just guessing. You could see it working. I was responding immediately and intensely to his touch, making sounds of genuine pleasure, not polite encouragement. My body responding involuntarily, arching and pressing into his touch without me deciding to do it. That's what precision does. That's what knowing what you're doing creates. But precision just shows competence. What really matters is whether you actually care about us finishing the selfish extinction. Young guys would finish quickly and act like intimacy was completely over. Mission accomplished. They'd barely tried to make me climax. They'd roll over or get up, and I'd be left frustrated and unsatisfied. They'd barely tried to make me climax. They'd roll over or get up, and I'd be left frustrated and unsatisfied, staring at the ceiling wondering what just happened. It happened so often I started expecting it. I'd think, well, that's just how it is, like my satisfaction was optional. An older man I was with was completely different. He was obsessed with making me finish first, like genuinely obsessed. He wouldn't even think about his own satisfaction until I'd climaxed. He seemed to genuinely get satisfaction from my pleasure, not just his own. He'd use his hands, his mouth, whatever worked, and he wouldn't stop until I came. His focus on my satisfaction made me more aroused and engaged because I felt valued, not used. And here's what happened. I actually wanted to reciprocate enthusiastically because he'd been so generous. It was the first time intimacy felt truly mutual instead of one-sided. That's the power of reciprocity. When someone is generous with you, you want to be generous back. Feeling valued increases arousal dramatically. But selfish lovers, they kill desire and create resentment that builds over time until you don't even want to be intimate anymore. He prioritized my climax over his own without keeping score. He used whatever method actually worked to make me finish. Hands, mouth, whatever I needed. He didn't consider intimacy complete until I was genuinely satisfied. He genuinely seemed to enjoy giving me pleasure, not just receiving it. And you could see the difference. I was fully engaged and enthusiastic throughout, not faking or performing. My responses were genuine. I climaxed before he did. I was eager to reciprocate. I was satisfied and happy afterward, not frustrated or resentful. That's what generosity creates. But even generosity doesn't matter if you can't last long enough for it to matter. If you're realizing why we choose experience over youth, hit like now. Comment. Older men, tell me what young guys don't understand. Young guys, are you finally listening? The marathon mastery. Young guys would finish in literally 3 to 5 minutes, leaving me completely frustrated. I'd just be getting warmed up, just starting to really feel something, and they'd be done. Finished. Game over. It was embarrassing for both of us. They'd apologize. Sorry, you're just so hot. But it kept happening every single time. An older man I dated could go for 30 to 45 minutes without finishing. 30 to 45 minutes. He had complete control over his responses, like he'd mastered his own body. The extended time allowed me to fully experience everything and actually reach climax during intercourse, not just from foreplay. I could relax and actually enjoy the experience instead of racing against his inevitable quick finish, trying to get there before he did, and knowing I probably wouldn't make it. His control was incredibly attractive. It showed experience and genuine consideration for my needs. Because here's the truth. Women need significantly more time than men to reach climax. That's just biology. It takes us longer. Premature finishing is the #1 complaint women have about men in bed. The #1 control shows you've learned. It shows you care enough to learn. He lasted 30 minutes or more easily, without struggling or looking like he was doing mental math to distract himself. He had complete control over when he finished. He could pace himself through extended encounters. He made absolutely sure I climaxed before he did every single time, and he never apologized for taking too long because he understood women need adequate time. You could see it working. I had adequate time to build to climax naturally, not frantically. I could actually finish during intercourse, not just from foreplay. I wasn't feeling rushed or frustrated or watching the clock. I was completely satisfied, and I could fully enjoy extended intimacy without anxiety about whether I'd get there before he finished. That's what control creates. That's what marathon ability does for us. But lasting longer just gives us time. What really drives us crazy is when you make us lose control of ourselves. The vocal command. Intimacy with young guys was relatively quiet because nothing they did was intense enough to make me genuinely vocal. I might make some polite sounds to encourage them. Little moans that were more about being nice than about actual pleasure, but nothing real. Nothing I couldn't control. An older man made me scream so loud I was genuinely embarrassed afterward, like covering my face with my hands embarrassed. He did things that made me moan uncontrollably. I made sounds I'd never made before in my life. Sounds I didn't know I could make. My neighbors actually complained about the noise the next day. They were not subtle about it either. I couldn't control the sounds coming out of my mouth. That's the key thing. They were involuntary. The intensity of what he was doing forced vocal responses from me that were completely beyond my control. And being that vocal made everything feel even more intense. It was a feedback loop. The sounds made me more aroused, which made me louder, which made me more aroused. Vocal responses indicate genuine intense pleasure, not performed pleasure. When you're making involuntary sounds, you're not in your head analyzing or performing or being polite. You're just experiencing. Loud responses come from overwhelming sensation that bypasses conscious control. And being vocal actually enhances arousal for both partners. It's biological feedback. He created sensations intense enough to force vocal responses, not polite ones. He encouraged me to be vocal and loud, not quiet and polite. He did things that made moaning involuntary, not performative. And you could see it working. I was making continuous involuntary sounds that were genuine, not performed. I was loud, possibly embarrassingly loud. I couldn't control or suppress the sounds. I screamed during climax. Neighbors could actually hear. That's what intensity creates. That's what knowing what you're doing produces. Real sounds. Uncontrollable sounds. Not the polite little moans we give young guys to encourage them. But making us moan just proves intensity. What really makes us surrender is confidence. The confidence dominance young guys would constantly ask, "Is this okay? Or do you like this every 30 seconds? Is this good? Does this feel good? Am I doing it right?" The constant validation seeking completely killed my arousal. It was like being with someone who needed constant reassurance that they were doing their job correctly. Their uncertainty made me have to direct and guide everything. I felt like a teacher giving instructions, not a partner experiencing pleasure. An older man I was with never asked because he genuinely knew what he was doing. He moved my body confidently into different positions without asking permission for every movement. He took charge without any hesitation or second gooing. His confidence allowed me to surrender completely and just experience everything without thinking. I didn't have to think or guide or manage anything. I could just feel. His dominance was incredibly arousing in a way that insecure fumbling never was. Because uncertainty kills arousal instantly. When you're constantly asking if something is okay, you're making her think instead of feel. You're making her manage your insecurity instead of experiencing pleasure. Confidence creates the safety needed for genuine surrender. We can't relax with insecure partners who need constant reassurance. He touched and moved with certainty, not tentatively. He didn't constantly seek validation or ask permission for every move. He took charge of positions and pacing confidently. He knew what he was doing, and it showed in every action. He made decisions without hesitation or second-guessing, and the effect was immediate. I relaxed completely and surrendered to the experience. I wasn't giving instructions or guidance. I was following his lead. My body was responding freely. I was lost in sensation, making sounds of genuine pleasure, not encouragement. And afterward, I mentioned how good it felt to not have to think or direct anything, to just experience. That's what confidence creates. That's what certainty does for us. But confidence just creates safety. What actually makes everything better is when you listen. The communication reality. Young guys would get visibly defensive or hurt when I tried to guide them or give feedback. I'd say a little softer, or can you try this instead? And they'd take it personally, like I'd insulted their manhood. They'd get quiet or sulky. Their fragile egos made honest communication completely impossible. I learned to just fake it rather than deal with their defensiveness. It was easier to perform than to teach. An older man I dated actually asked explicitly what I liked. Just straight up asked, "What feels good for you? What do you like?" He listened when I gave feedback without getting defensive or hurt. He adjusted based on my guidance immediately right then, not making me ask twice. He treated my input as valuable information, not personal criticism. Like I was giving him directions to a place he wanted to go, not criticizing his driving. The open communication made everything dramatically better because he was doing what actually worked for me specifically, not what worked for his ex-girlfriend or what he read in some article. What worked for my body, because everyone's body is different. We all need individual attention. Defensiveness prevents learning and improvement. Secure men can handle feedback without ego damage. He explicitly asked what I liked without insecurity. He listened carefully to both verbal and nonverbal feedback. He adjusted immediately based on my responses without defensiveness. He treated guidance as helpful information, not insulting criticism. He checked in about my experience throughout, and the result was clear. I was significantly more satisfied because he was doing what actually worked for my body. I was comfortable expressing needs and preferences honestly. I experienced more intense pleasure from customized attention. I didn't have to fake responses or pretend. I felt genuinely heard and valued. I was giving honest feedback without hesitation, expressing what I liked and didn't like. My responses were more intense because he was doing what worked. That's what communication creates when ego doesn't get in the way, but communication just personalizes it. What really makes us feel valued is what happens after our attention. Young guys would finish and immediately roll over or get up like I'd suddenly become invisible, like I'd served my purpose, and now they could move on to the next thing. They'd be on their phones within minutes, scrolling through social media. I'd feel used and completely empty. The immediate disconnection ruined whatever had come before. It made the whole experience feel transactional and hollow, like I was a service they'd purchased. An older man stayed present and connected after finishing. He held me and remained affectionate. He didn't treat finishing as the end of all interaction. We'd talk. He'd stroke my hair or my back. The continued attention made me feel valued as a person, not used as a body. The after-hour was almost as important as everything that came before it. It completed the experience and made it feel meaningful instead of empty, because women need emotional connection after physical intimacy. It's not optional for us. Immediate disengagement feels exactly like being used and discarded, like we were just a means to an end. After-hour creates bonding and complete satisfaction. Staying present shows you value her as a complete person, not just a body you used for pleasure. He stayed physically close and affectionate after finishing. He continued touching and holding me. He didn't immediately disengage, get up, or check his phone. He remained present and emotionally connected. He understood that intimacy doesn't end the moment he finishes, and you could see the difference. I felt satisfied and valued, not used and empty. I wanted to stay close instead of feeling disconnected. I didn't experience that post-intimacy emotional crash. I felt emotionally fulfilled alongside physical satisfaction. I was staying close and affectionate, content and satisfied, not empty. I wasn't rushing to leave or disconnect. I seemed emotionally fulfilled and was smiling and relaxed. That's what after-hour creates. That's what staying present does. But after-hour just prevents feeling used, the secret I promised. What really makes us lose our minds is something most men never understand. The holistic mastery. This is it, the secret I promised at the beginning. This is what makes women go absolutely crazy for older men in bed. Young guys focused only on the physical act itself, like they were following a checklist. Touch here, do this, move to that. Like they were assembling furniture from instructions. They missed everything else that actually mattered. They didn't understand that context and build-up and atmosphere mattered at all. To them, intimacy started when clothes came off and ended when they finished. An older man I was with understood the holistic picture completely. He paid attention to setting and created atmosphere. He'd dim the lights just right, play music that set a mood without being cliché, make sure everything was comfortable and inviting. He understood that what happened in the hours before mattered enormously. The conversation we'd had over dinner, where he really listened and made me laugh. The way he'd built tension and anticipation throughout the evening with subtle touches. The way he'd touched my hand or my back casually, building desires slowly, like turning up heat under a pot of water. He knew that what happened after mattered just as much. The continued connection, the conversation, the affection, making me feel valued and seen. He created an entire experience from the moment we decided to be intimate until hours after we'd finished. Every single element was considered unintentional. Nothing was rushed or thoughtless. The complete attention to everything made it unforgettable in ways I'd never experienced before. I felt like he understood intimacy as a complete art form, not just a physical act. Young guys treated it like a transaction. Insert tab A into slot B. Mission accomplished. He treated it like creating a masterpiece where every brushstroke mattered. He created emotional intimacy alongside physical intimacy through eye contact, verbal connection, genuine presence, and attention. After finishing, he maintained connection and presence. Didn't treat it as over when the physical part ended. The holistic approach meant considering every single element that contributed to my complete experience, and the effect was profound. I was significantly more aroused from the complete attention to every element. My mind and body were both fully engaged. I experienced much deeper satisfaction because every single aspect of the experience was considered and optimized. I felt completely valued and understood as a whole person, not just a body. I enjoyed every single phase, the anticipation, the build-up, the act itself, and the aftermath, the creativity arsenal. Young guys had the same predictable routine every single time. I could predict exactly what would happen in exactly what order. Kiss for 2 minutes, touch breasts for 1 minute, move hand down. 3 minutes of that, then the main event in the same position every single time. It was like watching the same movie over and over. I got bored so quickly I'd find myself thinking about my grocery list. An older man I dated had an entire arsenal of different techniques and approaches. He varied what he did based on the mood and situation. Sometimes slow and sensual, sometimes intense and passionate, sometimes playful. He knew multiple different ways to stimulate every single area. The variety kept things exciting and genuinely unpredictable. I never knew exactly what to expect. His creative approach made every single encounter different and engaging. I never got bored because it was never the same experience twice. Because repetition creates boredom and kills desire over time. It's inevitable. Novelty maintains interest and excitement. Variety shows extensive experience with different approaches. Lack of ego allows authentic focus on mutual pleasure rather than personal performance rating. Performance anxiety prevents genuine connection and presence. He wasn't performing for his ego or constantly seeking validation. He was secure enough to focus entirely on mutual pleasure. He could handle imperfect or awkward moments without crisis or defensiveness. He wasn't trying to prove his manhood or capabilities. He focused on the actual experience, not his performance rating. And the difference was night and day. I was significantly more relaxed because he wasn't anxious or needy. I enjoyed authentic connection instead of watching a performance. I didn't have to manage his ego or provide constant validation. I felt comfortable being completely genuine myself. But this can be devastatingly misused. You could use sexual skill to manipulate women emotionally and control them. You could become skilled specifically to use and discard women without care. You could use these abilities to control women through physical pleasure while treating them terribly otherwise. You could treat women as practice targets or conquests to add to a list. You could use experience to take advantage of less experienced or younger women. You could become skilled, but remain completely selfish about who actually deserves your skills and care. You could use physical satisfaction to excuse emotional mistreatment, dishonesty, or cruelty. Sexual skill without genuine care and respect is harmful and manipulative. You could use these abilities to hurt people emotionally while satisfying them physically, creating confused attachment. Being good in bed absolutely doesn't excuse being terrible in every other way. But these skills can create genuinely better connections when used ethically. Becoming a skilled, generous lover creates mutual satisfaction and deep appreciation. Understanding women's actual needs makes you a better partner in all areas. These skills enhance genuine relationships and create profound connection. Learning to give intense pleasure creates reciprocity and deep mutual satisfaction. Can you communicate openly about what creates intense pleasure? Are you willing to learn continuously and improve? Is your goal mutual intent satisfaction or just proving you're skilled? If you found gaps, work on your mindset and security first. Technical skill without genuine generosity and care makes you a selfish lover. Focus on becoming someone who creates intense mutual experiences, not just someone who performs well. Here's how to develop these skills. Weeks 1 and 2. Practice extreme patience in all intimate encounters. Spend minimum 45 minutes on foreplay every single time. Focus on building desperate anticipation rather than rushing. Learn to genuinely enjoy making her wait and beg. Weeks 3 and 4. Study female anatomy seriously. Understand exactly where everything is and how it works. Practice precise stimulation techniques on specific areas. Learn to read individual responses carefully. Focus entirely on making her climax first every single time. Weeks 5 and 6. Work on lasting significantly longer. 30 minutes minimum during intercourse. Practice specific control techniques. Learn to pace yourself throughout. Develop the ability to prioritize her satisfaction over your own urgency consistently. Weeks 7 and 8. Practice explicitly asking what creates intense pleasure for her specifically. Learn to receive feedback without any defensiveness. From slow burn torture to holistic mastery that creates experiences young guys can't match. Hit like if this destroyed your assumptions. Comment what you're learning. Subscribe. Tomorrow, I'm revealing what makes women addicted to specific men in